All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Undefined Engineering Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, here with my brother, Patrick, all the way from Colorado. Patrick just went through a pretty recent move, as you can see from his background change. Patrick, how have you been liking it so far in your new place?
Really like it. The move was awful, and we're on the third floor now. But we got movers,
Oh,
so it really helped.
man, third floor of anything is no fun.
Yeah.
I remember my first apartment out of college. We were also on the third floor, and the moving elevator was broken when we were moving in, so we had to carry everything up 3 flights of stairs, and that was not a fun time.
Yeah, nope, it was not fun. But I like the new apartment a lot more. So
Sweet, yeah. It looks like it's getting a lot more lighting in the background. That's nice. All right. Well, let's go over for the agenda for today's podcast. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is walking through a live example of like exactly what it takes to find jobs that you'd like to apply for out of college and go through that entire interview process all the way to the closing stages. So we'll be going through each step in that process from building out your LinkedIn, building out your resume, and we'll go through an entry-level engineer and a further in the career level engineer, and then we'll go through identifying key things that jobs are looking for and how to essentially build out your entire brand as an engineer around what these companies are looking for. Really focusing on quality versus quantity when you go to apply for these places, and then we'll go through some interview tricks and tips, I guess. Yeah, and kind of some things that we see our fellow engineering associates fail on and perform great on. So yeah. Other than that, Patrick, you any opening remarks? You want to dive right into it?
yeah, let's just dive right into it.
All right, sweet. So, coming out of college, what would you say is like the best tool for finding jobs?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn? Yeah,
Just
not a
'cause
hard question.
It's used by like everyone. It's like, or everyone should have it in college, and then every company has a LinkedIn page, whether posting jobs or if they're using their own personal website. But it's a good place to like connect with other engineers and other people in your industry, and then find companies you're interested in and stuff like that. So that's definitely the biggest tool I use, but not the only tool you should be using.
Exactly. Touching on LinkedIn, I know when I was in college, it wasn't really pushed on like engineering majors to go out and build in LinkedIn, try and build a brand about yourself. That was more for like the business majors and things like that. Was it the same way when you were in college as well?
No, yeah. They definitely like kind of push like business majors. You need to connect more and build your resume and build your LinkedIn profile and things like that. Engineering, I never heard anything from anyone. Just like if you pass your classes, you're good. You don't need a
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
No,
And like,
exactly.
yeah, talking from a lot of my like people at the school, a lot of them didn't even have LinkedIn's, which was crazy to me.
It's wild. Yeah, I feel like that's one thing that should really be pushed more in like the STEM majors. Yeah, you can get all these skills, which is obviously super value add for anywhere you want to go in your career. But something that's not touched upon enough is like how to market yourself and really put yourself out there as like an overall, I keep saying brand, but it really is like building your brand. So you can strategize that in like in a very efficient and very value add oriented way where it's like building your profile. Utilizing LinkedIn to build your brand is definitely a huge part of getting your foot in the door at a bunch of companies. So that being said, let's jump right into it. How can we utilize LinkedIn? How can we use it to find what we're interested in? And once we find places that we're interested in, how can we build ourselves to be the most value add and the most enticing candidate for these roles that we're going to start applying to? So I will go ahead and share my screen here. Alrighty.
There
You
you
see
go.
that? It's pretty clear. Is it grainy, Patrick? How's it looking on your screen?
That's good.
All right, sweet. Cool. So I am on LinkedIn. We are on our Undefined Engineering LinkedIn channel page. If you haven't been on LinkedIn before, this is essentially your home feed. It kind of works like an Instagram or a Twitter, but for professional resources and things like that. Here you can go over to your profile. You can build out a profile. We are in the very early stages of building out our LinkedIn profile. can see me here, my personal LinkedIn over here, Christian Moken. I'll go ahead and give a quick run through of my profile to see like tips and tricks for building it out and kind of what you want to focus on as you build out a LinkedIn profile. So you can see here, I have my name, my title with a tagline. Right now, I'm currently a senior quality engineer at Shield AI, and I'm host of the Undefined Engineering podcast. So you really want to put what you're currently doing at the forefront of your profile. And here you have a little bit of an about section that you can essentially outline your experience as like a professional summary. Maybe put some quick skills and passions here that you've really tried to focus on throughout your career. And then below that, it features your posts and activity. And on LinkedIn, it's key to try and stay as active as possible. The more active you are, the more like your profile will be recommended to people like hiring managers and recruiters. So the more active you are, the more direct correlation it has to you like kind of getting yourself out there. And at the very bottom, you have an experience section where you can list out your experience, kind of like how you would on a resume. I try to keep mine a little bit more to the point on LinkedIn because resumes tend to be very in depth. So you just want your LinkedIn profile to be like a front page catch all. Hey, this is me. This is my brand. This is what I have to offer. When people actually do land on your page. All right. So let's move over to the jobs section of LinkedIn, which is a great section that is very, very valuable. So here on the job section, you can essentially type in what exactly you're looking for. So let's say you're a mechanical engineering graduate, right? You don't really know what's out there, but you know what you're graduating with, and you know kind of where you want to be. So here you have options to be like on-site, remote. Let's keep these open for right now. All filters, you can go pretty much as in-depth as you want. So let's say I want to find a job in the Dallas area, right? A mechanical engineer in the Dallas area. All right. Now it's starting to pull every engineering opportunity you have or that LinkedIn has around your area. But this could be pretty, look at that, Shield AI. This could be pretty, I guess, general. And it'll essentially throw like everything that's ever been posted out here. So another essential filter that I like to do before I start looking is use this date posted section. And I like to go for the past week because like anything prior to the past week, I'm not really interested in. I feel like they're already deep in the hiring process. If they're not, then it's probably a sign that their hiring team is not very efficient in what they're looking for in a candidate, and you might not want to. That might be a quick. I might be jumping to conclusions there, but if they haven't found a candidate in a few weeks, then what are they doing, really?
I think
right, so
on the search too, it's like when I first started searching, it's like I would be more specific in like the title, but like as I kept searching, I would make it more and more general. So I'd be like manufacturing quality engineer and then go down to manufacturing engineer and then go down to engineer in specific locations. That kind of helps filter things out and stuff.
Definitely. And especially for most of our audience who is like new graduates or still in school, you'd also want to filter your choices to like internship, entry level. And there we go. Posted in the past week here in Dallas. See, we got a Project Engineer 2 posting here. Let's go ahead and click on it by Leonardo DRS. All right. So this step right here, transitioning from the job posting to your resume, is usually where I see the most error when it comes to people creating a resume and sending out a job application, because the gut reaction is to create a generic resume and send it out to as many companies as possible. But what you really want to do is you want to find a list of roles that you're very interested in and tailor your resume to those roles, because sending out a generic resume to a million different companies isn't going to get you anywhere. I'm sure everyone's seen those posts online where it says, oh, I've applied to 500 different places and I've gotten 0 replies. This job market is terrible. Um, there's really no opportunity for new entry level engineers. Well, that's simply not true. We get tons of entry level engineering resumes coming through our door all the time. And as soon as we look at it and we see that it's a generic template that has no relevance to our job posting, immediately gets thrown out the door. So you really want to tailor your resume around what job you're applying for.
And I kind of want to, you can continue with what you're saying, but I kind of want to backtrack and be like the filters on LinkedIn, like for the entry level and stuff, don't like rely on those like religiously, because sometimes they don't work. Sometimes jobs don't tag their job postings correctly. You can use those. And then other times, like even on the search bar where it says mechanical engineer, I'd put entry level engineer or associate engineer. And that kind of helps filter some of them out. But it's just like trying different things and different ways to filter the job search to find those entry level roles and stuff like that.
True. Yeah. I do notice a lot of the entry level postings are very bad about tagging what they need to be on the front end. It really takes some in-depth searching. All right. Let's move forward with this guy here. So product engineer 2 for Leonardo DRS. So usually job postings on LinkedIn will have a section outlining like what the business is all about, your essential high-level duties and responsibilities, and qualifications you need to have in order to apply. Now, another thing I hear about a lot from new graduates is they go to this qualifications section and they see, 2+ years of working in a technical environment, product and test experience desired. Oh, well, this one says desired, so that's pretty good. But a lot of times it'll be like 2 or 4 years of engineering experience required, and people will let that kill their mood and it'll pull them away from actually applying for that job. But I know qualifications can be scary, but they're not hard set qualifications. Like some places will do it, but most of the time, I mean, these companies have to put some sort of qualification for you to get a posting out online. But just because you don't have 4 years of experience doesn't mean they're not going to look at your resume and consider you. So don't let these qualifications really stop you from applying to job opportunities.
And I think that like also highlights how important it is to like join clubs and do internships, because a lot of times that stuff you do can count toward that experience for a recruiter. Like, oh, they don't have 3 years experience, but they were in this club all 4 years of college where they were getting technical training and expertise in doing these things. So it's really important to be like active in college doing clubs and internships and things like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point that you just brought up when you brought up like the recruiters looking for things on about a candidate. There's 2 things you really need to overcome when you build your resume, and it's building a resume out to get past the initial recruiting stage, and then having it be strong enough to get past a hiring manager stage for them to actually take you seriously. And those 2 resumes are like sometimes 2 pretty different things, because a recruiter will get, we've mentioned this in previous videos, but a recruiter will get a list of requirements, which usually centers around what the job posting entails in the post. And then they'll essentially look at a candidate's resume and make sure that candidate has every single point on that requirement sheet checked off before they even consider pushing them onto like a phone stage. And maybe it's not every single one, but most of the skills on that requirement checklist. Whereas a hiring manager will really look at like the value that's in your resume and like the projects that you've worked on and seen, and try to like extrapolate how you were a critical person or part of like a overall high performing team, and how you can like essentially fit in with their team. Yeah. All right, cool. So we have this here: qualifications, desired skills, essential duties and responsibilities. Now, let's say you have experience related to this. Not everything, but you've worked on projects that you can kind of mold your resume around to like fit this, right? So, Patrick, you have an example of your resume. Would you mind pulling that up? Because I think this is a good opportunity to show like an entry-level candidate's resume and like how we can form it to fit what's here.
You need to stop sharing.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Can you see it?
Yep. Cool. So let's start by going through like the different sections you have outlined in your resume here, Patrick. Could you go into like some detail on like why you structured it this way?
Yeah. So before I was graduating, I had my education up top, but now that I have some experience and with my internships and first job and stuff, um, the business experience really is the most important thing that recruiters and hiring managers are wanting to see now. A
That's a
lot of
key
people
thing.
even
Yeah.
remove their GPAs at this point. But yeah, so that's why I have the business experience up top, and then a relevant project also kind of up there with the business experience. I have it sectioned out just so I don't like confuse that. They're not confused like, oh, was that ankle brace like a job? Like, what was that? So easy for them to read. The spacing is really important. Just make it like really readable for the recruiters and whoever is looking at it. I moved education down to the bottom where it's still there so they can see it if they do care, and then skills on the bottom. Um, yeah, I just very early on don't have like too many super high level technical skills. So I don't think like, recruiters looking for entry level engineers are expecting anything like super high level. But of course, as you gain more skills and stuff like that, you might want to move that more up. It really just, you adjust the sections based on how critical they are in terms of where you're at in your career.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. And a key thing, like as you can see, your business experience is at the top. Um, you really want to strategize like how you structure and go about relaying the information related to like each section. So when you go through each one of these bullet points, um, essentially a good man, I need to stop saying essentially so much. I caught myself on that last podcast going crazy with it. All right. But as you go through each bullet point, you want to display like a key job function or task and like the result of what that like what you were doing was. Um, uh, Unless it's just like an overall generic job function scope. Um,
Yeah,
so
and
like,
I think I struggled with too is, um, I don't know, like when you do an experience like internship and stuff, like stuff you do is gonna be like you might think it's very basic or things like that, where like maybe I'm not as helping as much as I thought I would. So a thing that I had issue was like talking down what I was doing. Like I would like, especially for like the end of the internship presentations and putting it on my resume, I would be like, oh, all I did was this and this. But like the higher level engineers and you, when you help me like build my resume, it's like, no, you didn't just do this and this. Like you helped with this project, you did this. So
mhm.
it's like you don't want to like, you definitely don't want to lie on your resume, but it's like you want to like make yourself look the best you can while explaining the experience you have.
Yeah,
So like it's important not to sell yourself short, basically, on your resume.
exactly. And I know you had the experience or you had the luxury or opportunity of having multiple like internship experiences before you graduated. But let's say a candidate doesn't have all these experiences. Like you outlined here, the relevant project section. Anything you work on in school, put it on your resume. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter if you directly think it's like a high value project or a high impacting thing. Um, if it's an opportunity for you to show your skill set or show your critical thinking or mindset around approaching problems or solving things or designing parts, put it on your resume so you can have a chance to talk about it once you go move on to like a recruiting
yeah,
stage or a manager stage.
yeah. Because as you go through classes, you're gonna have like design projects and things like that. And if I didn't have internship experiences to put on there, I would definitely fill it with those because those are still like you can demonstrate leadership roles, technical abilities, and technical skills with those projects and talk about it. So yeah, if you don't have internships and stuff like that, like those projects can definitely go on there.
Yep, definitely, I agree. And a key thing as an entry level grad, and even as a engineer earlier in your career, keep your resume one page. Don't overload it with too much information. No hiring manager or no recruiter is going to want to look at a 2-page resume from someone with less than 5 years of experience. Yeah. All right, sweet. We'll definitely put an example of this resume as a link on our video. So a lot of the entry level or students, candidates can pull from directly from this video and use that as like a template moving forward.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Formatting is super important, and you help me with that because I just used like a generic Google Chrome, or like not Chrome. What is it? Google Drive format one. And then you help me reformat it to that one. It's a much easier to read and just a lot more simple, which I think really helped.
And you touched on like the differences in structuring your resume. So I'll pull up one of my previous resumes. It's actually not letting me pull it up. Okay, awesome. Well, that's unfortunate. But I was just going to show mine's structured slightly different from yours. Like my I have it split up between like true business experience and like internship experience, or like hard blocked off. That way recruiters and hiring managers know like what was truly post grad experience and not. All right, cool. So I think that was pretty clear. We'll give a template for both, like an entry level grad and a senior in their career type of resume for people to use moving forward from this podcast.
I have a question.
What's up?
So let's say like how your advice was keep it one page if you don't really have 5 years experience or like a lot of like post grad experience yet. At what point do you start removing internships off? Do you ever do that?
I haven't removed any internships off. I've just heavily cut the fat out of like what I did there, because like some internship experiences really come in handy. Like me personally, I had internship experiences with SMT manufacturing and semiconductor fabrication processes, right? And right now I'm an electronics quality engineer. So if I were ever to like submit an application for another electronics oriented place, like I don't want to have that direct experience off my resume, because like SMT fab and semiconductor fab are like critical in the understanding of like basic electronic manufacturing techniques and practices that someone else from like a traditional automotive quality engineering background may not have. So you definitely want to keep those unique skills and call outs on your resume, unless it does not impact what the role is that you're applying for. If it has nothing to do with what you're applying for, cut the fat, take it off your resume, keep it as a second template to use for a future date.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Now let's say you submit the newly defined resume. Like we use your template, right? And then we add in key things that we notice from the job posting. So let's pull up the job posting again. Share. All right. So let's say you have this, right? Now, you want to figure out the best way to put on your resume. Fear not, we have tools that can help with that. So you can essentially again, there we go. You can highlight all of these bullets, go straight to your friendly neighborhood ChatGPT source, and let's.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to switch automatically.
Yeah. Friendly neighborhood ChatGPT source. I know everyone out there is not using this application. And say, please order this in experience on my resume. And then you let it work its magic. Now, if you don't have direct experience with any of this stuff, I don't recommend using it. But if there's a way you could go in here and manipulate it into ways that align directly with your experience. So like manage technical activities to ensure timely and budget compliant task completion. That's a pretty generic thing. Like
Yeah.
a lot of engineers will do that in their job role. So I would take that, add it to the resume, and essentially do it for every single thing that you can that will provide the most coverage for what the job roles and responsibilities are. And if you do this, this is pretty much guaranteed to get you past that initial recruitment stage, barring that your resume or your experience is strong enough to get past candidates with maybe similar experience, right?
Yeah.
But at least this won't give the recruiter a reason to hard no you straight off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a good way to get like keywords in there. So like a lot of people just don't know how to word their experience or projects the best way. So it's a good way to see how, I guess, ChatGPT does it and recommends it. And you can use like keywords off of it to put in your resume.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say moving forward to the next phase, you get past the initial resume review and a recruiter gives you a phone call, right? Typically, Patrick, how would you say that recruiter phone call goes?
It's more of like a get to know you phone call. Usually they don't call you and ask you technical questions because, you know, they are the recruiter. They have their defined list from engineering management, but they're not going to be like experts on the role that you're doing. Basically just kind of get an understanding of who you are. They want to make sure you can actually talk and have, you know, flowing conversation and seem, you know, like you're able to do the job and communicate with other engineers really well. So it's kind of like a touch basis with you. They'll ask you like a few questions, like basic ones, like how did you find out about the company? How, you know, all that, you know, like super basic interview questions, nothing really technical. It's just kind of getting to know you. And I think the most important part of those interviews is to be very like personable and try to seem confident in your answers and how you talk and the questions you ask and things like that. Yeah, for those first initial calls though with the recruiter, you shouldn't be expecting anything technical or anything like that. It's just like getting to know you type stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Typically, like the most technical question you'll get is the recruiter directly questioning something that's on your resume, right? They'll probably just ask like, "Hey, can you expand on like the experience you have here, or show like how it fits in like this sort of environment?" And if you've been spending time like studying your resume and really planning out how to go from A to B in terms of like concise value add responses that align directly with like what's on your resume, then you'll be fine in any sort of recruiting interview call.
Yeah, I think what I did start out like before I even started submitting applications was I just looked up like 20 most generic engineering entry level like questions online, and I made like a Word document, just answered them all.
Yeah.
And that kind of helped me able to like, if they ask a question, I'm like, oh, I've kind of thought about it before. So that might be, if that helps people, that might be a tool to help. But yeah, it's like they ask like, yeah, very basic, just questions, getting to know you, how, why you're a fit for the role and things like that. So,
yep, definitely. Now, getting past that initial recruiting phone call, moving on to the hiring manager. What have your experiences been like as an entry level engineer getting to the hiring management phase? Because typically, for entry level roles, you'll go through two main interview sessions, which will be like the recruiting call, and then it'll be the hiring manager interview. And sometimes they'll even do a panel interview, but that's a little bit more rare. I think that's usually for when you get a little bit more experience under your belt and start going for those higher level positions. But yeah, tell me about the hiring manager processes.
Yeah, so for me, I was very nervous about those interviews going in, especially like my first internships and things like that, and going from internships to like full time positions, because I was like really scared they were going to ask me like super technical questions. But from my experience, it's very still like surface entry level. They're just like ask you about, you know, your classes, how some experience you've had. And once I did get some internships in, a lot of the questions just came about like, tell me more about your experience, or they formulated questions based on my resume and they wanted to hear more about certain experiences. Sometimes they would ask me like specific. I think the hardest question I ever got asked was for an internship, and it was like super easy still. It was just like, oh, they asked what my favorite like what is it class was. I said thermo, and they asked me like explain the Bernoulli's equation then. So
Nice.
but you shouldn't really expect that. Like they're really, I don't know. They just try to ask you more like kind of generic, like tell me about the company, why should we hire you, tell me about your skills, like tell me about your weaknesses, and then they asked more about like my experiences.
Yeah.
Which those questions I feel like are super easy to answer if you've been studying your resume. And
Yeah, definitely. And if you're one of those people who have trouble with like word vomiting and running down a rabbit hole when you get asked a question, I know that was a big thing that was tough for me when I first started too. I'd start thinking about one thing, and then everything I've ever done would start flooding into my mind, and it could lead you down a crazy, crazy wild goose chase. So with that being said, star format. You got to stick to the star. It'll help you even as you get more senior in your career. You'll be amazingly surprised at how many experienced engineers do not know how to answer a question concisely. And it'll help you in your actual job position too. When you're explaining out to high level management things that are happening, they don't want to sit there and listen to everything that you're saying or everything that has actually happened. They want to hear the true, to the point, what's valuable to them type of answers, and that's just going to be your basic situation, task, action, and result. That's what STAR stands for, by the way, if you didn't know that.
Yeah, using that method isn't really stressful because like I feel like most people naturally answer in that way, but just thinking about the STAR method will kind of inherently help you not ramble on about your answers. Because engineering is different than like other, I guess, industries and things like that, and that they don't want the fluff. They just want a straight answer. So it does help. It does help with that stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, sounds good. All right. My direct experience with hiring managers when I was an entry level engineer, what was that like? It was pretty straightforward for me. I went directly into a quality engineering position. So like after the initial recruitment interview, which was like a very high level breakdown of my resume, I went straight to a hiring managing team. That would essentially ask me very low level technical questions. Since mine was quality engineering, they'd ask me things explicitly related to quality engineering, which is like product validation. Do you know what FMEA, RCA is, which is like failure mode and effect analysis when you're looking at a part? Yeah, what are the failure modes that could happen, and what are the actions you should take because of it? Things like that. Super simple stuff. And then they try to get, I would say the most common things a hiring manager does is they try to get a read of like how you would be in situations that they know that their engineering team faces every day. So they may give you an example problem of like a situation that a typical engineer may face in this role. They'd like to see how your thought process moves around it, what sort of path you take, what sort of questions you ask. It's a big one too. Don't forget to ask questions in an interview. They're not just expecting you to be a rocket scientist that knows everything off the bat. Add those contextual and leading questions that can get you information that'll help guide you towards a conclusive and productive answer. Yeah.
And I think the biggest, I do not like preparing super hard for interviews. I like just to let it flow naturally, kind of. The only things I kind of did prepare was like explicit examples of like times I was in a leadership position for projects and things like that, and working in a team. You just kind of want to have those because a lot of the entry level stuff they'll ask you about working in teams. So those are the only kind of questions I think that I prepared for. Just like, oh, I have examples in my head that I know of when I was on a team working on a project or was a leader on a team and things like that.
Yeah. Agreed. Alrighty. Looks like we're coming up at time. Patrick, do you have any closing remarks you want to give? Just like a high-level summary of basically how to handle yourself in this process? Because I know a lot of people are going to be going through this for the first time, and it is a very nerve-wracking experience, and it seems like the odds are stacked against you. So, yeah, any other tips you want to give them?
I like kind of the thing that helped me like relieve some stress or like not stress so hard about certain things is kind of like that phrase, like fake it till you make it. Like everyone is just faking it till they make it. So like, I know going like starting college, I was like, every single engineer knows so much. They're super smart. They know everything about what they're doing, and it's just not true. And
yeah, that's definitely not true.
Yeah, it kind of helps relieve the stress because like if you get past the stage where they want to interview you, they've seen your resume. They've seen your resume, LinkedIn, whatever you gave them. They know you're qualified technically for the position. So like have confidence that like, okay, like I belong in this interview process. And now they're just trying to dive deeper into your experience and see if you're a person that they want to be working with every day. So I don't know, just don't be too stressed. It's not like super hard. Like I was super stressed about interviews when I first started them, but it's like it's not really hard. They don't ask you, I was expecting them to ask me like crazy calculus questions, and I was super stressed about that, but they just asked like getting to know you questions and your experience and things like that.
Yeah, agreed. Couldn't have said it better myself. Just know if you're super deep into an interview process, don't worry about it. Show your personable side. That's a crazy important factor that you should not forget about when you're interviewing, because like Patrick said, they're trying to find someone that they want to work with day in and day out for a long period of time. So
Personality hires are important.
yeah, personality. Sweet. All right. Well, I think that's a good way to end this podcast. Patrick, thanks for hopping on today. This was a fun way to end our Labor Day weekend vacation in a way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Sweet. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us next week on the Undefined Engineering Podcast. Thanks, everyone.